Some of you say that it's not the white man, it's just the system.
Have you noticed? You can't speak the truth or be candid with white folks. They start to crash out right away. They start to take it personal right away. You can't say anything against the West or against the United States of America because they, again, as broke as they are, feel that they have a stake in everything. And they do. They have benefits and privileges that other people, especially black people, don't have. So whenever you mention America, they take it personal. They got this patriotism thing down to the letter. And yet this very same country, which they'll die for, actually hates them too, you see. But yeah, go try to have a conversation, an honest conversation about the truth of the West to the average white person. And I guarantee you, they'll get defensive and they'll take it personal and they'll crash out. Check it.
I'm telling you, most Americans, and by most Americans, I mean mostly so-called white Americans, they'll get upset. They get upset when they see my talks. They get all sorts of negative emotions when I talk about the dismantling of America, the decline of America, the collapse of the United States, and so forth, the downgrading, the demotion of America as a global power. They get sad. They get hopeless. They get depressed, or they get defensive, or they get despondent. And I understand why. I understand why, because it has historically been their system. They got enough benefit from that system to make them actually believe more deeply in the myths around that system. Because of course it was a myth. It's always been a myth. It's never been anything but a myth. But they believed in it. The truth is they didn't enjoy benefits in that society because of democracy and freedom. They enjoyed benefits in that society because of mass murder. They enjoyed benefits in that society because of pillage, because of slavery and piracy and exploitation, and because of war and brutality. But they always thought that Uncle Sam was on their side, you see? They thought that they were the favorite nephew of their Uncle Sam. So when they see Uncle Sam, or when they hear me talk about Uncle Sam being amputated piece by piece, it grieves them. You understand me? So I understand why the erosion of America, or the erosion of the myth of America, I understand why that bothers them and why they get all up in arms about it. I understand it. I understand why they get depressed. I understand why their feelings get hurt. There is no more indoctrinated people. There's no more brainwashed and no more psychologically and culturally misprogrammed people on the face of this earth than so-called white Americans. I've talked about that before. Like I say, the marauder mentality, the lack of development and so on, the lack of civilization and what have you. The overwhelming majority of them, the truth of the matter is, the overwhelming majority of them throughout history have only ever been serfs, and they're still serfs until today. And the truth of the matter is that they don't actually have a stake in that system either. They don't have a stake in the system either. The system doesn't care about them either. That's the fact. But to one extent or another, they have benefited from it, and more importantly, they identify with it, right? When the United States sends someone to the moon, they'll say, "We landed on the moon." When the U.S. attacks another country, they'll say, "We are at war. We are at war." When they talk about the American economy, they say, "Our economy," and so on. It's like a fan of a sports team or something. The fan of a sports team who imagines that he has some kind of a share in it anytime that team wins a game. You see, they identify with the American project as their project. So when that project degrades, they identify that degradation with themselves. It's personal. They take it personally. There's a sense of loss. There's a sense of disappointment. There's a sense of panic. But like I said before, what's happening in America is the onshoring of previously offshore colonization and extraction. And that's going to be applied across the board to all demographics. The neoliberal economic programs that they used to use to plunder countries all across the global south are now being applied at home, and that's going to intensify, and no one is going to be spared. You need to know that. No one is going to be spared. No one is going to have, protected hands-off status, because this is not being done for the sake of America. It's being done for the sake of a national capital. It's being done for the sake of the a-national owners and controllers of global financialized capital who have completely untethered themselves from any sort of nationalism. They've untethered themselves from any sort of patriotism or any sense of investment in the old obsolete priorities of the American power structure. Well, who depended on that power structure all this time? What demographic depended on the power structure? Which one relied on the backing of that power structure all this time? Who's been the priority? What demographic group has been the priority of the power structure all this time? Who's always actually had the real protected, the real privileged status in that society? That's going away. Look, when I go through my comment section, who do you think I see? Who do you think I see most often talking about, I have to get out of this country? I'm planning on moving out of this country. Who do you think is melting down? Who do you see having meltdowns on social media, in public, screaming at their phone camera, crying at their phone camera, yelling, weeping, begging for someone to come, for anyone to come and save them, begging for someone to come and fix things, to lead them, to rescue them? Well, you obviously know who it is. You know which people are doing that. It's the same people who never built anything for themselves. It's the same people who never had to build anything for themselves. I'm not saying this as a put down. Understand, I'm not saying this as a put down. It's just another data point. This is what I'm telling you. It's another data point. I'm saying that the way that that country is going, the direction that that country is going, the skill set of the oppressed is going to have a massive advantage over the skill set of the privileged. And like I say, again, this is when you see that hunter-gatherer mentality, that marauder mentality. I have to get out of this country, you see? Let me get my passport and go somewhere else. If I'm not going to get my privileges, if I'm not going to get my comfort, if I'm not going to have my convenience catered to, then let me get out of here. Let me go elsewhere. Greener pastures, you understand? Scavengers. There's no patriotism. There's no nationalism. There's privilegism. There's get-mineism. They'll drop that country. They'll drop that country the same way that their elites are dropping that country. You know, I mentioned before that JFK quote. I've talked about it a few times. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Well, when he said country, he didn't mean you. He didn't mean African Americans. He didn't mean Latino Americans. He didn't mean Arab Americans or Asian Americans or Muslim Americans or anybody else. Country here refers to one specific demographic. Means ask not what white people can do for you, ask what you can do for white people. Yes, that's what it meant. That's what it means. Like I said, they identify with the country and they identify the country with them. And that's the only reason why they identify with the country. That's the only reason why they actually identify with the country, because the country has always meant them. So the minute it does not mean them, they're booking their flights out. They're booking their flights out of there. I told you they don't believe in anything. Listen to me. They believe in a full belly. That's what they believe in. They believe in what a wolf believes in. I'm not being racist. I'm not trying to generalize about white people. I'm not saying that they're genetically predisposed to that or something. I'm saying that their culture has let them down as human beings. Their culture, their system has betrayed them. It has betrayed them by never cultivating them, by never civilizing them properly, by teaching them that cheating and that stealing and pillaging and appropriating and exploiting, by teaching them that violence and colonization and so on, that all of these things are viable, sustainable, acceptable pursuits, and that they don't inevitably lead to where they have led, to the situation that they're in now. They were lied to, and they believed it. They were lied to. They believed that they were told that skin color is a metric of value. Skin color is a metric of superiority or inferiority. They were taught that what you do has no consequences. You understand? They were taught that predation and plunder are actually successful, sustainable life strategies. And of course, this goes back to Europe. This goes back to Europe and their whole culture. I mean, until today, you all talk about your so-called Enlightenment. Enlightenment. The era in which you fully developed your absolutely most grotesque concepts of your so-called Western civilization. Literally the period when you came up with all of the theories and all of the philosophies and all of the models that fueled and that justified all of the crimes that you were committing at that time and all of your future crimes. White supremacy, racism, colonialism, imperialism, genocide, chattel slavery, wage slavery, The idea that the human being is nothing but an input for business, nothing but a resource for extraction, materialism, relativism, atheism, on and on. You call that enlightenment. You call that enlightenment until today. You brag about it. You're proud of it. When that whole period, all of the intellectual output of that period was just to manufacture rationales for being savage, for being brutal, and for being ruthless. To make all those inhuman traits and all those inhuman behaviors sound intellectual and sophisticated. Well, how did you think that was going to end? How did you think that was going to end? Where did you think that was heading? Wallahi, I tell you, any Muslim who had read the Quran could have told you that your project was doomed from the outstart. You never did anything in your history but purchase the consequences that you are facing today. And worse is forthcoming. The point is that they are unprepared. That particular demographic is unprepared for what is coming to that country. They have no coping skills. They have no community. They barely even have families. You know, when you have enjoyed unearned privilege, when you've enjoyed unearned authority, well, what do you think happens when the time comes when you have to actually earn it? You have to actually earn it now, but you never actually learned the requisite skills, the discipline, the work ethic, the wisdom, the sacrifice, and so on. Well, it's very easy to predict how that's going to turn out. It's very easy to predict how that's going to go. I said the tables are turning. The tables are turning, or more accurately, we're entering the consequences phase. I know I've talked about this before, but look at the birth rate. Subhanallah. You cannot tell me that this is not a divine, a manifestation of divine justice in and of itself. Imagine a people, a whole people, a nation, committing self-genocide, self-extinction by their own logic. Think about it. They're dying out. They're dying out as a direct result of the way they think about life. Their philosophies, their theories, their paradigms, their enlightenment. Their enlightenment built a system, built a society, built an economic model, an approach to the economy, built an approach to life that makes them not want to reproduce, or else makes it they don't want to reproduce, or they can't reproduce because it's too expensive. Their way of thinking is causing them to go extinct. Their way of thinking is causing them to go extinct. But they still think it's the right way to think. They still think it's enlightened, even while it is erasing them. Look at this madness. Tell me that's not a curse that they brought upon themselves. Tell me that's not divine justice in action. I told you, flawed input, flawed outcome. You adopted a doctrine of predation and destruction, and that doctrine is devouring you out of existence. And you still won't give it up. I'm telling you that what's happening in America right now was always going to happen. We just happen to live in the generation to experience it. We just happen to live in the time when the prayers of hundreds of millions of America's victims are being answered. And if that doesn't please you, if that doesn't make you happy, then that can only be because you are someone who is on the wrong side of those prayers. Because this is justice.